lightish, 300 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, manual sports car. Basically, if you guys haven't been paying attention, there is a rumor floating around where basically the next gen GR86 is going to have the 3-cylinder turbocharged engine from the GR Corolla going to be on some Lexus platform. Many believe, or the rumors believe, it's going to be an IS platform. Going to be mildly hybridized and make somewhere in the neighborhood of over 300 horsepower. And I mean, that's all we've been asking for the GR86 and BRZ is just give us 300 horsepower. I should point out this is all rumor and speculation at this point in time. It's not by any means confirmed by any source we have within Toyota or anything like that. Yeah. But I have some thoughts on this. I'll let you get yours out because I know you had some fairly strong opinions on it. And then we'll kind of discuss from there.
My strong opinion is this. I don't see at all, ever, that car getting a Lexus platform. I don't think it's happening. The only thing that it would get is an RC platform, and that platform and chassis is older than dirt. So there would not be, by 2025, unless they do a joint GR86 RCF or RC joint platform, I don't see it happening. I think that actually has less of a chance of happening than the Corolla engine going in. And I think the Corolla engine here is an excellent play. I believe that if Toyota really wants to make this thing a sports car, and it's a sports car, to be honest, it is a sports car. If they want to make this a serious sports car and ditch the whole Supra BMW thing, then they need to have the Corolla engine in there, and they need to push it to 350 horsepower. That would be around what you're getting for like a base Supra. I know it said 330 something when it just came out, and now it's 382, right? These 3-cylinders out of the GR Corolla and the GR Yaris in Europe, people are tuning them to 500 horsepower on stock internals. They are a strong engine. There is a picture roaming around the internet of that engine with everything sort of like cracked open. The cylinder walls are as thick as my head. This thing can take power for sure. So that engine in this car, you don't even need a new chassis or a new platform. That engine in this car, as it sits, world beating. That is what we are hearing as far as how good this platform is as a driver's car. But with the engine that it deserves, I think that's huge. And I see that happening more so. There it is. Like, that is insane. Look at how thick those cylinder walls are for a 3-cylinder.
Here's where I'm at. I think you could do a shared platform. And let's face it, if you look at, like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, the Alpha platform with GM for years. That was a Cadillac, that was a Holden, that was a sedan, it was a Camaro, it was mid-size sedan, it was a full-size sedan, eminently modular, but it basically shared so many components to where it drives the cost of things down. I mean, just think about it for a second. If you can get a Camaro SS for a certain price with a V8, it makes things more affordable. So if you went to a quote-unquote mother chassis for the GR, it would make sense. Like everything in car development, if the more cars you make, the more cars you sell, the cheaper the R&D and the process of going through it becomes.
Right.
And so let's just say you make a ton of these and you make 25% as many insert Lexus sedan here. I do agree with you. I don't think it's very likely just because they already have this chassis. They just released this thing not that long ago. They made a ton of chassis improvements to it. As far as this rigidity, all this other sort of stuff. They ditched the idea of the goofy tires to make it drift easier. Like, that was a good idea on public roads. You take the boring stuff aside. Is that this rumor sounds more like a wish list to me than a Toyota leak, right? What would make more sense is that they would put the 3-cylinder in this platform and call it a day. I think this car would be great with right around 300 horsepower. It doesn't have to have much more than that. And you have a lightish 300 horsepower rear-wheel drive manual sports car. And that is quite literally everything we have been asking for this type of car. Because I think if you start straying into the Lexus, you start straying into the hybridization, you start straying into all these categories, at some point you're going to end up with a car that is basically the same price as a four-cylinder Supra. And at that point, why does the four-cylinder Supra need exist? It's like everything else. Like, the four-cylinder Supra by itself is a great sports car. But because the six-cylinder exists, nobody really wants the four-cylinder. Nobody aspires for the base model, right? And you would kill the charm of this car. You would kill the charm of it being affordable, because guess what? Even if you... I mean, it's not like Subaru doesn't make a turbocharged four-cylinder that can make 300 horsepower that would bolt almost directly into this. That would make the most sense. And yet, turbo adds price, and now all of a sudden, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand more on top of it. Is it the affordable sports car that people are actually buying? Or do they just sit here and say, take it, modify it, it's fine?
Here's my problem with it. They upgraded the engine to a 2.4 liter, right? Mm-hmm. It's a 2.4 liter out of a Subaru Ascent. The Subaru Ascent has a turbo version of this engine. Why didn't you just put that in the car in the first place? I don't understand why they have to make this thing NA. I get why they did it, but I don't understand it. For the marginal gain they had, to go from a 2.0 to a 2.4, and everyone says, oh, they get all of that big torque dip, was now gone with this engine.
Still there, just not as noticeable.
These
Subaru engines, NA, just aren't torque monsters. They just aren't.
No, they're not, and they never will be. The thing is, you had the engine turboed. You don't have to make 300 horsepower in this car. 250 with 220, 215 pound-feet of torque is all you need. That's it. And that's bothered me since day one. And everyone has been saying, oh, yeah, it's such a better engine and blah, blah, blah. And there was even one guy, I think Hansen had met on either the launch or something, and I was watching his videos, and he was doing a video at the launch event for this car, and I think Scott Speed was the driver. He'd been hired by Subaru to come in because he's one of the drivers for Subaru. And this guy came in and talked about it. Oh, it's sort of like a Porsche Boxster. And I'm like, I lost all respect for everything after I heard that in the video. And I'm just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If people are comparing this thing to a Porsche Boxster, which is arguably the best sports car on sale today, no. Especially with an engine that is anemic still, and was turboed in another application in a family SUV that you could have detuned for this sports car, or even stroked out to a 2.5 or whatever. Either way.
You don't have to do any of that sort of R&D. Just take engine A, change the mapping to match sports cariness, and send it.
That's the biggest gripe I've had with the car since day one. It's like, you literally took a 260 horsepower turbo engine, ripped the turbo off, and threw the NA into the sports car.
The thing I will say about the 86 RZ platform, right? I think it always had an 86 and a BRZ, right? Let's go back to life before these cars. Everyone's like, the Miata, whether you believe it or not, or want to argue the nomenclature or whatever. What was the biggest gripe everybody had with a Miata? That wasn't someone who was an avid Miata owner or had even driven one. They were kind of, and for lack of a better way of putting it, a chick's car. It's a convertible that always kind of this, it's cash, blah, blah, blah. They gave us basically a two-door coupe Miata. I understand making hotter and hotter variants of a car, again, drives price up. And you end up in a car that kind of outprices the people who want it. So I get it from that standpoint. But what I don't get is you're already making an engine. You're already putting that engine into things. Why not put it into one of these? Our first ever press car was the FRS, if I'm not mistaken, right?
100% right. Scion FRS.
And that thing was a ton of fun, but it just felt like it took forever to get going. I would love to see this with the 3-cylinder. I think that's maybe possible. I don't see it with a hybrid at all, because lightweight sports car plus batteries doesn't really make sense. I could see it sharing a platform with a Lexus just because it would help offset some of the cost for a new Lexus platform, so to speak, right? And that kind of gets into Antoine's thing. He says, let's just say hypothetically it does happen. Which platform for Lexus is the size of a GR86? Is the IS, LC, or RC? IS, you'd have to remove the rear doors. At that point, a two-door IS would just be another LC or RC. 100% Justin, that's the route they should go. I'll get onto that in a second. The closest would be the IS. Putting a different body on that quote-unquote chassis wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world to do. And to the second part of your question, if you remove the doors, at that point it's a two-door IRS, hypothetically, would just be an LC or an RC, which technically isn't accurate because the LC is a bespoke chassis to the LC. It does not share any of its, it might share some componentry as far as the physical parts, but as far as the dimensions, layout, whatever, the bones of the chassis, it's bespoke to the LC. The RC is part IS and part GS. It's kind of a hodgepodge, and it has if I'm remembering correctly, it's wider than an IS. Which again, you can make a car's narrower or wider at the factory level pretty easily. It would have to be a new chassis. You don't realize how small the GR86 or the BRZ is until you're next to it.
Yeah, it's small.
Again, how much development is a car company going to put into a new sedan or whatever chassis when EVs are coming, crossovers are outselling everything? Just how much effort would they put into it? Or would they just update the current platform, plop a new engine into it, maybe make the full fat 400 horsepower hybrid version the Lexus, because the heavier the car, usually speaking, the better it rides. Would I love to see it? Yes. Yeah. Do I think it's likely? Probably not. That being said, someone should put the 1.6 liter turbo 3-cylinder into one of these things and be like, see?
And you know what? I bet you someone will. I bet you someone will find a crashed GR Corolla or Yaris and shove one of these in there. Guaranteed it's going to happen before 2025. Guaranteed.
Kind of close out this. Justin says putting the 3-cylinder in sounds like a new build you guys need to make happen. Justin, yes. And well, really everyone, but Justin, you should lead the charge and goat the rest of chat to do this. Share this with the 10 million people and get them to give us 50 cents each.
That's actually an interesting point. If every one of the people on our Facebook page, 592,000 people, gave $1, all you got to send is 100 stars. That's it. That's $1.
You know.
And you know what? If every one of them said 100 stars, we could basically do whatever we wanted.
Antoine says, this is why an AP3 Generation S2000 needs to come back, because this is what's missing in the Roadster and two-door coupe sports car segment to compete with the so-called third-gen GR86 and an actual MX-5 Miata. I mean, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? That kind of hit all of the things you want in a car like this. The S2K was the perfect kind of small sports car. Made 250 horsepower, had a galactic red line for an inline 4 engine, looked the part, sounded the part, was just a great vehicle all the way around. Problem is for someone else to come up with it, they'd have to develop the chassis. Sadly, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but we'll see.